We've got some roster moves and cuts to break down on today's show. As much as the NFL preseason is underway, Atlanta, of course, played on Thursday, and Terry Fontenot is already getting a head start on some of the roster cuts he has to make. As this year, there is no gradual cut down. We're going straight from 90 down to 53 players. So you're seeing a couple of teams already start to make some moves. And here were the 4 players released by the Falcons. Offensive tackle, Jalen Mayfield, definitely the most notable name on screen, along with cornerback Bless Austin, defensive tackle Justin Ellis, who they signed a little under a month ago, and Big Jelly just was not in NFL shape, it appears. And then finally, defensive lineman Delontae Scott. But Jalen Mayfield, definitely the biggest name of the bunch, a third-round pick from 2021 after 2 years is done in Atlanta. It appears maybe there's a practice squad spot for him waiting, but I'm not very sold on that just yet. So before we really start getting into the X's and O's, the nitty-grittiness of these cuts, make sure you are following us before Tuesday when we do go from 86 down to 53, as we are going to have a video coming out with the entire Falcons 53-man roster and all the cuts made. So subscribe today so you do not miss out on Tuesday's video. Now let's start in the cornerback room, where Bless Austin is no longer a part of the depth chart. No real surprises here. A.J. Terrell, Okudah, D. Alford. You have Cornell Armstrong, Flowers, Hughes, and Phillips and Hall all battling for 6 roster spots. And for Austin, he was always on the outside looking in. When I look at the cornerback depth chart projection, I'm still going with these 6 players right here, or 5 players, I should say. A.J. Terrell, Jeff Okudah, D. Alford, Mike Hughes, Clark Phillips, Cornell Armstrong. No, 6 players, Trey Flowers. And then I have Darren Hall on the outside looking in. So those are my cornerback projections following the Bless Austin cut, which does not really impact it at all. Now let's get to the offensive line, where you see Jalen Mayfield is no longer your backup tackle, your backup guard. The Falcons tried moving the really young and raw former Michigan Wolverine who came out of college early, and the Falcons kind of took a gamble on him in round 3, thinking if we can mold him, we like the intangibles, we can kind of make him into our very own type of offensive lineman. Ultimately, it just didn't work out. It's a bummer. It's not the first time a third-round draft pick has been cut after 2 seasons with their team, and it's not going to be the last time either. For Mayfield in Atlanta, it just was not going to work out with the Falcons, giving him ample opportunities after moving him back to tackle to try and get him to get comfortable and to find a role on this roster. And he was a turnstile in the preseason, and the Falcons, well, they move on. So when we look at our offensive line projection, which we put this video out just a few days ago, we did not have Jalen Mayfield on it, basically because of the Steelers game. He was a liability on the field, so I swapped him out for Tyler Vrabel, and sure enough, here we are saying it. I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Jalen Mayfield got cut. A third-round pick is always tough to move on from a GM. First, second, and third rounders are looked as rounds you got to hit on. So if a GM moves on from a player from one of those rounds before their rookie contract is up, it's a bit of a black eye for the GM. And that's a bit dramatic for a third rounder, because third rounds are never supposed to be bulletproof. But you'd like to hit on more third rounders than not. And for Atlanta and Mayfield, it is over. The Falcons, by the way, I should add, are 100% going to add a tackle. As soon as all the other teams are done making their roster cuts, the Falcons, with the 8th selection, the 9th selection in the waiver wire order, they are definitely going to add a player. I don't quite know who. I do not know every team's backup and third-string tackles that might get cut. Hand up. But I am for sure going to claim my stake and say the Falcons are going to add to their offensive line depth here by making a waiver claim for a swing tackle. So what is the Falcons draft pick that you were just wrong on, right? You thought it would work, and it just didn't. And hand up, we all get our draft picks wrong. We all have our claim to fame, and we also have all of our bad, mock drafts and picks and things like that. Be brutally honest with me down in the comment section. Now on to the defensive line, where the Falcons are out with no longer with Delontae Scott. And again, this move does not come as a big surprise here. I did not even have him close to making the Falcons defensive line. In fact, I said this earlier for Mayfield getting cut. all 4 of these players getting cut today as we look at my defensive line roster projection. If you're getting cut today, I don't think the Falcons have any interest of, bringing you back onto their practice squad. If they were interested, they'd probably bring it down to the last moment or two, the 54th and the 55th cut and whatnot. But the first 4 guys out the building, yeah, I don't think Atlanta is reserving a spot for them on their practice squad. So after all these roster cut downs, the Atlanta Falcons are now at 86 players. So there is still a lot of ways to go for Terry Fontenot and crew to get it down to 53 by Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern. So with that, I do want to toss this your way. Do you think there are any more surprise cuts coming? I think Jalen Mayfield was probably going to be your biggest potential surprise cut going into training camp. I definitely did not forecast that. But here we are talking about Mayfield moving on after 2 seasons with Atlanta. So let me know if you think there is another notable-ish name that might be on the hot seat that no one is really talking about, and it would come as a surprise. I do want to wrap up the show by getting to some quick injury news. Michael Rothstein tweeted out that Falcons head coach Arthur Smith said he's still optimistic about cornerback Jeff Okudah when asked if Okudah would return early in the season, but declined to put a timeline on when he'll be back. He also talked about Cordarrelle Patterson, who's working through a soft tissue injury, and it sounds like Cordarrelle Patterson could be back in practice soon, which is really encouraging to see, because I was a little worried that they would get Patterson through the roster cutdowns and then put him on injured reserve and give him the first month of the season to rehab and get back to 100%. But if he's close to practicing, maybe he won't need the first month of the season to get ready, and maybe it's just the first week or 2 max, which would be really good for this Falcons offense. But the cornerback room with no Jeff Okudah, well, I think it's probably going to be Trey Flowers, the next guy stepping up in that spot. Cornell Armstrong is also injured as well. Mike Hughes nicked up in addition to that. So you got a lot of injuries in the secondary right now. I don't think it's going to be Clark Phillips, but maybe all these injuries have Atlanta bring on like 7 corners, right? Where they know that until they get Okudah back, they have to bring on an extra corner. And then once Okudah's ready to go, maybe they move on from someone else. But those are the injury news and notes coming out of the final preseason game as we get ready for regular season football. 15 days, Atlanta, Carolina. So make sure to subscribe so that you can get the best Falcons content leading up to the 2023 NFL season.